Well, it's raining outside, so we actually took the video inside to make, but I want to talk about the only objection to crossbow hunters that I have. And it's not, there's a lot of, frustration going on the internet right now. So it's all over social media. You have guys that are against, crossbow hunters, and you have guys that are not. Obviously, you have people that crossbow hunt. Several years ago when I grew up, getting into hunting, I got into bow hunting because back then, you needed a permit, or some type of medical reason for you to be able to use a crossbow. So in my generation of growing up, everybody bow hunted, vertical, compound, whatever it was, but it was a vertical bow. Bow hunting takes, a particular set of skills in order to master. Back then, 25 years ago, I knew people that were professional archers, tournament shooters, that you put them in a tree stand, they couldn't kill a deer with a bow. It's different because you have the angle, you got to aim lower. It's just a whole different type of environment. You're in the woods, you have branches, you have, you're worked up, you're excited, so it's hard to pull off, And it was very difficult. It's still very difficult to do. With today's, vertical bows, you got, with different speeds and, poundages and kinetic energy and stuff, it makes it a little bit easier, And I want to start out by saying that I'm not bashing any crossbow hunter whatsoever. I'm not bashing crossbows itself, and I'll get to that in a minute. But with that being said, with the skills and everything to it, when this thing became legal for people to bow hunt or crossbow hunt year round, throughout the season, you had all these gun hunters that came in with the mindset of gun hunting to transition to crossbows. Oh, well, my gun shoots out to 100, 150 yards, when I'm rifle hunting, 200 or whatever it is, I can take this crossbow and shoot out to 100 yards. Well, you have these companies that are advertising these crossbows to shoot out to 100-yard distances. And that may be great for target practicing because, with a compound, I may practice out to 60 yards, but I will tell you this, I will never shoot a deer at 60 yards. When you start getting out to moose and elk hunting, yeah, those 100-yard, 80-yard shots can take place because it's a larger target. You're far away from the animal, so they're not going to hear that arrow coming, so they're going to have less time to react and things like that. But when you're trying to shoot whitetails out that far, it's hard to pull off. People have troubles at 25 yards pulling it off. So it's a huge difference. Now I want to say there's steps, in making things easier. If you want to go back to the times of hunting on the ground with a recurve, okay, that's a step, right? You want to get into a recurve and a bow, that's your next step. You want to get into compound bow hunting, that's a step. Then you get into gun hunting, rifle hunting, shotgun hunting, muzzle loader. Each one of these weapons or steps makes it a little bit easier to kill a deer. Hunting out of a tree stand, hunting out of a blind, enclosed blind. You got your scent, closed inside. You can't be seen. You have all these different cell cams, right? Cell cams make it a little bit easier to kill a deer. Some people are comparing rifle hunting to crossbow hunting because crossbows, you set it up, you pull the trigger. There's a lot of different scenarios that you could say. I have zero problems with anybody that wants a crossbow hunt. Do I personally believe that people should get into archery with a vertical bow, compound bow, or a recurve? 100%. That's how I grew up. That's my mindset. And these crossbows, they're not necessarily a bad thing. And we're getting to it. I had a situation last weekend on public land. Okay, I hiked back in probably about 1.5 miles. I was hunting public land. On my way out, I came out around 12 o'clock. When on my way out, I ended up passing a wounded. It was like a little 6-pointer or something, and it got up and ran away. But it had a crossbow arrow stuck in its rear leg. Right, it was pretty bad injured. So I'm like, man, that sucks. It kind of hopped over to the other side of the road there. So I got back out to the main hiking trail. I turned right, started walking up the road. Literally 150 yards up, here comes this doe, hobbled across right in front of me. Had another crossbow bolt stuck in it. I'm like, man, what is going on, right? So I get back to the vehicle, and there's this guy standing there in a pickup truck, and he had a crossbow. He's sitting on his tailgate, and I saw that he was, messing with some arrows and stuff. And I said, man, there's 2 deer back there, with a crossbow arrows stuck in them. He started laughing. I was like, man, I was like, what? Why is that funny? He's like, oh yeah, I shot at these deer at 80 yards. I'm like, well, why? Why'd you do that? He's like, well, I'm good out to 100 yards. I said, well, obviously not, because you just wounded these deer at 80 yards. And he wasn't even looking for them. I said, you're not going to go, they're right, I can show you exactly where they are. And I said, you're not going to look? Oh, he's like, oh, I looked, but I knew I wounded them, so it is what it is. My point of this is the objection. It's not the crossbows. It's not the weapon. It's not the trail cameras. It is 100% the person. It's the person behind the crossbow. It's the person behind the rifle. It's the person behind the vertical bow. It's the person that's using the trail cameras. This guy should never be able to hunt again. He thought it was a joke that he's slinging arrows out to 80 yards in the woods at a deer, wounding it, and not searching for it to put it out of its misery. This guy should never have a hunting license. He should never, ever be able to hunt again. You have people that's like this that ruin, sports, ruin different, whatever sports that it may be. In the hunting world, we have all this frustration between compound bow hunters, recurve bow hunters, rifle hunters. They're bashing these crossbow guys. But it's the mindset of the rifle hunter that's coming into archery, trying to be an archer. They're taking these crossbows, they're listening to the advertisements from the companies saying they're good out to 100 yards, and they're taking these long shots, and it's wounding deer. I've seen this over and over and over. But again, it's not the weapon, it is the person. These people, these are the people that I'm bashing. It's the knuckleheads that have this mindset that it's just a deer, we wound it, whatever, I'm gonna do what I want, sling an arrow, shoot a deer out to 100 yards. This is the type of things that we're dealing with. Maybe they couldn't, I know people back, like I said, back in the day that could never shoot a deer with a compound bow. They can't do it. They couldn't do it. So what do? They resort to the next step, next easier thing, rifle hunting, right? Or crossbow hunting, because they couldn't be a vertical bow hunter. So people can crossbow hunt all they want, guys. Literally, I'm all for it. When I get old, my shoulder gets met, whatever it is, whatever ailments that I have that I can't pull a bow back, guess what? I'm going to be crossbow hunting. But I can promise you that bow might be able to shoot to 100 yards and group them like this, or whatever crossbows group at that far. I promise you I'll never shoot past 40 yards, 35 yards. All of my archery shots with a compound, I've shot within 30 yards, okay? Every yard that you shoot beyond 20, 25 yards gets a little bit harder, a little bit harder, a little bit more riskier, a little bit more riskier. That's just a fact. People have a hard enough time shooting them at 20 yards. There's all over the internet every single year. Oh, it's 20 yards, I wounded the deer. What do you think is going to happen at 40 and 50 and 60 and 70? It's just a huge mistake. And these people that with this mindset, and this guy that I witnessed in the parking lot laughing it off of wounding these 2 deer, right? We had some words back and forth. He's like, who are you to say I can't do it? Like, dude, I'm not saying you can do whatever you want, but have a little respect. Know your limits. This is not a joke. It's real life. It's an animal that we need to. I hate killing animals, right? I don't want to wound them. I want to kill them as fast as I possibly can. And you have to know your limits. Shooting deer at 80 yards, 100 yards with these crossbows is absolutely ridiculous.